A black man stood in front of the judge, his heart racing as the words "guilty" echoed through the courtroom. The sentence was harsh, the air thick with tension, yet no one could have predicted what would happen next. The judge, ready to pass down a verdict, paused, staring at the name on the case file. For a moment he seemed to freeze, his eyes widening in disbelief. What was going on? The man standing in front of him wasn't just any defendant. He was the lead prosecutor in one of the most significant cases of the year. But why had this happened? Wait a second. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. James Daniels had never seen a courtroom like this before. A prosecutor by profession, he'd seen it all, from the most brutal criminals to the most heart-wrenching cases. But nothing could have prepared him for the journey that would bring him to stand trial on the other side of the bench. It had been a typical Tuesday morning when James received the call. An accusation, one he knew was completely false. A series of miscommunications, misunderstandings, and racially charged whispers had somehow made their way to a court of law. A minor altercation in a parking lot had spiraled into something much bigger. Before he knew it, James found himself facing the very system he had spent years fighting to uphold. As he entered the courtroom, his mind raced. He'd worked with countless judges, but today, as the room filled with onlookers and cameras, James knew this was going to be different. The judge, an older man with a stern expression, called the court to order. James could hear the murmur of the crowd behind him, the whispers growing louder with every passing second. The courtroom felt suffocating, the walls closing in on him as he stood, trying to hold his composure. "You stand accused of assault, Mr. Daniels. Do you have anything to say for yourself?" The judge's voice was cold, emotionless. James's mind flashed back to that day in the parking lot. He had been walking to his car when another driver, clearly agitated, had confronted him. Racial slurs had been thrown at him. But James had been trained in patience, in de-escalating situations. He had done everything right, or so he thought. However, the footage leaked to the media had been edited, showing only the parts where James appeared to be defensive. Specifically when he was seemingly raising his voice, as the prosecutor, James had been in charge of cases like this every day. He'd faced countless individuals with stories like his own. But now, as the defendant, the world seemed to turn against him. No one paid attention to the nuances of the situation. All they saw was a black man in an altercation, and that was enough for the public to demand justice. The courtroom fell silent as the judge prepared to deliver the sentence. The judge paused. A long, agonizing silence filled the room. James looked up, trying to read the judge's expression. There was something different about the way the judge was looking at him. Something was off. Then the judge's eyes widened. He glanced down at the case file again, his expression turning to one of shock. James's pulse quickened. "I'm sorry," the judge muttered under his breath, before looking up at James again. "Mr. Daniels, you're the lead prosecutor for the Crown, aren't you?" The courtroom was still, every single person hanging on to the moment. "Your Honor, what does that have to do with this?" James managed to ask, confusion creeping into his voice. The judge took a deep breath, his fingers trembling as he placed the case file on the table. "I had no idea. This changes everything." The room's atmosphere shifted from one of tension to one of complete disbelief. The realization had just dawned on everyone in the room. The man accused was someone they knew well. James Daniels wasn't just any defendant. He was one of the most respected figures in the courtroom. The judge stood frozen for a moment, processing the weight of the situation. The courtroom was eerily quiet as everyone waited for him to speak. The judge cleared his throat. Given the circumstances, the severity of the allegations, and the public response, we need to reevaluate how this case has been handled. He turned to James. "This is no longer just about you and what happened in that parking lot. This is about what this system has come to, and what it's willing to do when faced with racial prejudice." The room buzzed as murmurs filled the air. James knew this was just the beginning. The realization hit harder than the sentence. He wasn't just fighting for his reputation. He was fighting for the very integrity of the system that had brought him here. And now, more than ever, he knew he had to win this battle, not just for himself, but for the countless others who faced the same prejudices in silence. How many more stories like this will it take before equality is more than a seat assignment? Tell me, where are you watching from? Take care.